and welcome to Stef Talks Trash. I'm your host, Stefanie Valentic, Editorial Director of Waste 360. With so much misinformation available about what can and can't be recycled, consistency is key to reducing contamination and creating an effective, sustainable local program. Today we're taking a trip to Orange County, California, where the Orange County Waste and Recycling Department and the Orange County Department of Education have teamed up to engage and educate local learners to adopt sustainable behaviors. Let's get started. Well, I'd like to welcome you to Stef Talks Trash. And my first question is, where did this idea for an education program for composting come about?
Perfect. Well, I'm Irene Alonso. I'm the Community Programs Manager at OC Waste and Recycling. And I've been spearheading the outreach programs for waste diversion education in Orange County, funded by the county's AB 939 program. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But I've worked really closely with several of our partners, including the school district, several grant programs, as well as some key partnerships with other organizations, nonprofit sports teams, to help us try to incentivize educational learning about, recycling best practices. So that's kind of what I do. Well, I'm happy to give you a little background of how this particular program was born, and then maybe Yarib can touch on why the classroom and the kids make an ideal fit for this type of education. But for us, I mean, the county, we have several state mandated outreach goals that we're required to achieve in terms of recycling and waste diversion. And even though it's a statewide goal, us as a county, we're held accountable for what we do in our area regionally. And we've had several programs, including partnerships and grant programs with Discovery Cube in Orange County and Inside the Outdoors. They both have some big outdoor programs with us, which includes some of what Yarib was talking about, Inside the Outdoors, as well as other events and outreach opportunities that we take. But we were really trying to figure out how can we get in front of students and more directly in the classrooms, because there's several of us that we're well aware that going directly through students and certain age groups are the best ways to really teach about these things. But we wanted to try to find a way to tie it to some type of curriculum so that it could really solidify bringing it into the classroom. And so we've been working closely with Orange County Department of Education trying to figure that out. And in 2016, when the environmental principles and concepts were adopted by the state as requirements and materials were going to be required in the textbooks and in the curriculum, we really looked at it and said, oh my gosh, here's our chance, because it also had a certain type of requirement to include local or regional tie-ins to what is taught. And I know, talking with Lori Keister and Yarib, they were saying, hey, teachers are really struggling to have content and materials for this stuff. And if we could package what we already do into curriculum that helps them achieve this, then it's a win-win for all of us. So this is great. So that's how it was pretty much born. And we put together this 5-year program, which included a 1-year pilot to start with, which Yarib will kind of talk about how that went. And we just started year 2 this August, as far as the first official calendar school year that the program is kind of set in place, full program region wide. So that's kind of that end of things. And then Yarib can kind of touch on why the students and how that's important.
Under the Eco Challenge umbrella, local educators will have access to materials that support classroom education, family activities, and student engagement related to Orange County's waste and recycling diversion efforts. Let's hear more about this new program.
So my name is Yarib Dheming. I work with the Orange County Department of Education, specifically for our environmental education program called Inside the Outdoors. So it's administered through the County Office of Ed, providing outdoor environmental programs throughout the county, actually throughout Southern California, to be honest, where we have outdoor field trips from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. And then we have traveling scientists that actually go into the classrooms for hands-on programming, community programs, family engagement components as well. We've been around since 1974. So, what I always tell people is if you want to look at what a community looks like, you look at the schools, right? So, and for our program, traditionally we serve over 100,000 students every year with our environmental education programs. So if you think about how to engage students with things that interest them, right? So you think about the environment, their impact on the environment, it's a natural connection to programs that focus on recycling, composting, and just waste diversion in general. And the fact that we're part of the County Office of Ed, we really make sure that we're supporting teachers with California's content standards, right? So there's new science standards that were adopted not too long ago. And so as they're implementing these new standards and performance expectations, it's really crucial for us as we develop programs. It's a direct tie-in to what's being done in the classroom. And what's great is when they're impacted with these programs, whether it's outdoors, in the classroom, it could be composting in school gardens, they take that information home. They're excited, they talk about it. They get to talk maybe around the dinner table with their friends, with their family, and that peer-to-peer learning, that family engagement is really, really important in getting that message throughout the county.
Stakeholders took about a year to come up with this curriculum and to implement it. Exactly, who are these stakeholders and what part will they play in advancing this curriculum? Let's hear more.
Well, for us, the County of Orange is obviously funding the program. Right now it's a 5-year contract. It's $500,000 contract, spaced out at $100,000 per year. The reason we will be able to make it so economical is because we're focusing on existing material that we already have. And then the school district basically doing an analysis and seeing how we can tailor that towards the curriculum. And then from there, we build off of that. And a lot of it is material that's digital and online, which actually worked out to our benefit during the whole COVID impact. But it keeps it cost effective and easy to use by the teachers and the students. And so we're basically the funding partner. And again, like I said, the AB 939 funds, which are strictly regulated on our end. And one of the areas that we're able to spend it on is outreach and education. And this happened to be a very ideal time for us with some of the newer state legislation regarding organic waste now in SB 1383 that we could fold in the organic waste side of things. People are used to knowing bottles and cans are part of the recycling stream. And now we're trying to tell them, hey, you know what, organic waste is now a part of that too. So that's what our job is on our end. And then obviously the Orange County Department of Education through Inside the Outdoors, carrying on the academic side of the equation. And then Yarib can talk to how important the teachers are in this equation as well as the students, because the way we're structuring the program is kind of a 3-pronged approach that he can touch on later. But
well, and then also, Stefanie, when you're thinking about stakeholders, the districts that we directly work with, the districts, the schools, part of the Orange County community here, really important for them to know that these programs are not only engaging, but they support the academic instruction. So we work with every school district in Orange County, and that also includes, we work with private schools and charter schools to implement some of these programs with their students.
So how will recycling best practices be implemented in the classroom and encourage engagement? Let's hear more about how this program will be implemented.
We started last year with a pilot where we identified teachers, schools that would be able to implement this, in a very difficult year, because it was a very difficult year in education. So the fact that we were able to identify those teachers and they were willing to implement, this program, was just really ideal. And that just goes back to the relationships that are built over years with the schools, with the school districts and the teachers. So that was a pilot year for the 2020-2021 school year. And then coming into this school year is where we had our full launch. So that's when you saw joint press releases come from Orange County Waste Recycling, the Orange County Department of Education. So because we received that feedback, to see if there's any changes that need to be done with our pilot schools or pilot teachers. And then that's when we transitioned to a full launch. In the pilot year, we had about, over 20 schools, 10 different districts, with fantastic feedback that we've had from them, with no changes really needed, very easy to use programming. And then we're hoping to kind of expand that further to, the rest of the county.
Yeah, and if I could just add too, I know Yarib kind of skimmed over it a little bit, but they did a lot of work in that first year. I mean, they came on board in July of 2020. And in that first year, they did a complete audit of our materials. They developed a marketing plan to how they're going to outreach to the teachers. They developed how they were going to evaluate the program in so much detail, and they kept on schedule every step of the way. And to us, that was key, is to working with the Orange County Department of Education, because they have those relationships with the teachers, and it wasn't like us coming out of the blue trying to build those relationships. And they knew exactly who to go to, who to participate with, how to get their feedback. And I mean, it was just phenomenal how much they were able to keep on track considering everything going on. But that was probably the biggest part of the initiation of the program. And then from here, we look at years 2 through 5, really being evaluating, updating, and integrating new materials, as well as expanding the grade levels. In addition to seeing how else we can pull in partners and expand the program a little bit more broadly for other participants.
So how exactly did this program come about? Why the classroom and why schools? Let's hear more.
You know, one of the things that we always want to make sure that it's grade appropriate, right? Grade and age appropriate. It's culturally relevant. So one of the great things about the new science standards, there's a lot of focus, and especially the environmental principles and concepts would support the standards. There's a lot of focus on local, so local community, local environments, local phenomena. And then this program also gives students, you know, a voice on what they can do to impact their own neighborhoods, their own community. The family engagement piece, you know, really, really big part of this project as well, because we want to make sure that it's not just ending in the classroom. We want to make sure that it continues at home, community, and even further. And one of the models that we use in this lesson, it's the 5E model, which it's encompassing engaging, exploring, explaining, elaborating, and evaluating, right? So the teachers are kind of guiding the students throughout these processes with the curriculum in place. So we've purposely made this program easy to use, supporting standards, and engaging, you know, to the specific grade level. As Irene mentioned, you know, the plan moving forward is to identify other grade levels that we can support with the content, and it's supporting their standards directly as well.
Were there any challenges to meet state mandated education requirements? And how exactly does this support science and history frameworks? Let's hear more.
That's a great question. So, you know, that's something that teachers need to teach. They need to implement into the classroom, right? So science standards, history, social science. And that's, like I mentioned, this is a program that we use those as the driving force to what we develop, right? Especially the environmental principles and concepts in California, which kind of are big ideas to help instruct the standards. And it's that deep relationship with human and natural systems. And that relationship fits really well with 5th grade and other grades that we're going to identify, specifically with, you know, waste diversion, organic waste diversion, composting. So and the EPNCs, the environmental principles and concepts, are actually written into science standards, history, social science, and also health as well. So it's a great way to kind of make those connections. It's like we're here to connect all the dots for the teachers that this is part of what you're already teaching. You know, here's those big ideas, and here's how you can incorporate these big ideas.
And there's been so much work that's gone into this already, and as you mentioned, you know, getting the teachers to say, you know, here's something that I need to add to the classroom. Were there any challenges to kind of balancing this with the state mandated education requirements?
You know what's interesting, actually, I think it was less of a challenge now because of the focus on local communities and the environmental principles and concepts. Before, if you looked at it years ago, they might have been a little bit trickier to make those connections. But now that teachers are seeing in these standards, you know, look at local, look at your community, look at Orange County, look at Southern California, it's actually making it easier to incorporate these lessons into what they're already doing in the classroom. It's more relevant, you know, and there's better concepts that 5th graders can take away from these lessons.
We've discussed how this program came about, who the stakeholders were, and how it is going to be implemented. Let's hear exactly about how success will be measured.
Ram.
With everything that we develop with Inside the Outdoors in the County Office of Ed, assessment is a big part of that. And that goes along with teacher surveys, student surveys that are put out there as well. And definitely looking at also the student work that's produced with these projects, because being hands-on, incorporating what they can do at their school and their community, those are some of the components of this project, is what they can do with their family. And then we're asking for that student work to be shared with us so we can see that direct impact, but also going along with the teacher surveys are really key in us with how we can improve the lessons moving forward for different grade levels.
Now that we've had an overview of the program, discussed how it's going to be implemented, and how success is going to be measured, let's discuss exactly how this program will evolve going forward.
As far as regionally for us in this program, we're really excited and already talking about how we can grow this with other partners. So just like us, the county, we're responsible for certain jurisdictions and meeting certain state mandates for waste diversion and outreach and education. Every city is as well. So what we'd like to do is expand this program and make it a possible option for some of the cities to partner with us. And maybe capitalize on the structure we already have in place, so that we're not all recreating the wheel. Everybody has messaging and outreach that they've got to do. And we really think that we can grow this as a cost-effective solution for some of these cities that don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of extra arms and legs to be doing extra stuff. And if they can partner with us and help contribute material that can be targeted specifically to the schools in their areas, they could give way more detailed information specific to their cities. And they can also save money and like I said, not recreate the wheel. So we're really looking at seeing how we can expand that with other partners. We fund many programs throughout the county, and we'd like to see this grow as one of those options, because we already know from talking to many of them, they're already thinking about, I want to go to the schools and I want to reach out to them. And we're like, well, this is the perfect venue. There's, we can do this together and collaborate on our messaging. So that's what I see from there. We also have other partnerships we're looking to bring on board. We've used partnerships with our Angels baseball team and Anaheim Ducks locally. They've been fantastic partners with us from an environmental standpoint and helping us to incentivize our messaging. And we're looking to bring them back into the program as well to help incentivize the teachers and the program. So we're looking at getting that pulled into the program as well. So that's what we're kind of looking at on that end. And then Yarib can talk about more specifically to the actual curriculum and program.
Sure. So, looking ahead, how we see it evolving is incorporating more lessons for different grade levels. Ideally, we'd want to have programs available for K through 12. So just kind of looking at how we can develop, different lessons specific to content standards and how it's supporting, teachers and students, at school, and also looking at everything through the lens of equity. So making sure that we have different languages that are available. We're focusing on different communities because that family engagement piece is really crucial to this project. So, making sure that they're able to connect with these projects at home is really, really important. But expanding to different grade levels will definitely be one of the first steps in kind of evolving this project.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of Stef Talks Trash. For this and other episodes, please visit waste360.com, and remember, don't be trashy.